The cliff was treacherous, slick as ice, and unyielding to those who dared to challenge it. The mountain's sheer face offered no solace for those who attempted to scale it, and the perilous task seemed insurmountable. Among the many, not all had mastered the art of flight, and for those who had not, even the thought of leaping to the top seemed impossible. Most of the scholars were still at the spirit embryo or five elements realms, far from reaching the required divine arts that would allow them to defy gravity and ascend the cliff's daunting height. The wall stood as a test in itself, filtering out more than half of the scholars. Those who had learned the art of flight soared upwards with ease, though they were but a few. The rest, in desperation, rushed to sprint up, but each was swiftly thwarted, their heads smashing against the cliffside in failure. For many of those who had never grasped the concept of flight, frustration hung thick in the air. Some attempted to leap upwards, their efforts futile as they barely managed to clear half the distance before plummeting back to the ground. For those who fell, their disqualification was inevitable, ushering them out of the competition. "Isn't it easy to ascend?" Wei Yong's voice cut through the murmurs, his tone light and teasing. He stepped forward with a grin. "Why not pull yourself up instead of jumping or flying?" His reasoning was met with puzzled expressions, but his actions soon dispelled the doubts. Wei Yong, round-faced with large ears, tied his vital chi threads to his swords and guided them upwards, their blades slicing through the air to latch onto the top of the cliff. He tightened the threads, pulling himself slowly upwards, inch by inch. When he was near the top, his palms gripped the cliff wall, and he effortlessly flipped himself over the edge, his voice carrying down to the others. "Brother Qin, why not try this method?" Qin Mu, ever the natural, bent his legs deep, coiling his strength like a spring. His muscles tensed, vital chi flowing through his limbs as his body shot upwards with a burst of power. He flew 120 yards in a single leap, landing beside Wei Yong with a thunderous impact that startled the onlookers. Wei Yong, wide-eyed, took a step back, his gaze full of astonishment. "Brother, you've mastered battle techniques, haven't you?" That leap was incredible, truly remarkable. The scholars below stood speechless, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The middle-aged Taoist at the base of the cliff nodded sagely, jotting down a single character, battle, beside Qin Mu's name. For Wei Yong, he wrote, wit. Wei Yong's clever method had opened the minds of many, and soon the scholars below were experimenting with similar techniques, using their swords or other tools to send their vital chi threads up to the cliff, allowing them to climb with newfound ease. The number of successful climbers grew steadily. As Qin Mu and Wei Yong moved forward, the Jade Summit stretched ahead. The serene landscape before them held a strange charm: lush hills, serene springs, waterfalls, and greenery. Birds and animals moved through the landscape, though these creatures were far from ordinary. Towering in size and with scales or feathers that hinted at an otherworldly influence, they seemed to have absorbed the dragon chi of the 9 dragon veins, their forms altered by it. They arrived at the first great hall of the Imperial College, a vast structure that spanned 300 yards in width. The platform before the hall was equally grand, capable of holding thousands. Qin Mu surveyed the area, noticing that the divine arts practitioners who had ascended before them were absent. Clearly, their tests differed from those of the regular scholars. Before the hall stood 99 Taoists, each flanked by a god formed from their vital chi. These apparitions, towering with only the upper halves of their bodies visible, radiated an imposing aura of power. Qin Mu's heart trembled with awe. These Taoists were clearly powerful, their vital chi forming tangible manifestations that suggested they were nearing the celestial being realm. Their power rivaled that of the hall masters of the heavenly devil cult. Yet Qin Mu noted with some wariness, the gods these Taoists commanded were eerily identical. It struck him as odd. Should an opponent discover this flaw, it would leave the Taoists vulnerable to attack. "Such Taoists are easily defeated by Granny," Qin Mu mused silently. Imperial College, renowned as a bastion of supreme learning, had its own flaws. While the education here was undoubtedly vast and comprehensive, the methods taught were often too homogeneous. Each sect had its strengths, and the diversity in their martial and divine arts was what made them unique. As if on cue, The gods behind the Taoists stirred. With a deep command from their leader, the gods descended from their masters' backs, landing on the circular platforms in front of the hall. The leader spoke, his voice resounding across the vast space. Scholars, form groups of 10. Line up and come forward. Unleash your might upon the gods' apparitions before you. Whether through the God path, Devil path, or Buddha path, let nothing hold you back. The gods will fight back, and only one in each group shall remain standing. Those who endure will pass the test. A collective gasp rippled through the scholars. This challenge promised to be far more dangerous than the previous one. The cliff had already disqualified half of them. But this test would cast aside 90%. The excitement among the scholars was palpable as they scrambled to form their groups and ascend the platforms. Wei Yong, ever the strategist, moved to a different platform, while Qin Mu remained where he was. Before long, 10 scholars were gathered on his circular stage, and across the 98 other platforms, similar groups were taking their positions. "Begin!" The shout rang out, and before the words even had time to settle, the gods' apparitions surged into motion, attacking the scholars without mercy. The scholars scrambled to defend themselves, their movements frantic. Qin Mu moved like a blur, his body shifting with the grace of a phantom. With a series of swift motions, he dodged the attacks of the gods and propelled himself across the stage. 9 deafening crashes echoed in the air as 9 scholars were knocked off the stage in rapid succession, their attempts to resist overwhelmed. His opponents stood no chance as he effortlessly eliminated them, his focus unbroken. The god's apparition that had been attacking Qin Mu froze, ceasing its assault entirely. The Taoist leading the examination observed in stunned silence before declaring, "You've passed." As Qin Mu descended from the stage, the Taoist muttered to those beside him, "This youth harbors a demonic nature. He attacked his fellow scholars while the gods' apparitions were busy with them." The murmurs of concern spread swiftly, but Qin Mu paid them no mind as he moved toward the great hall. Behind him, the 99 Taoists whispered in unison, "Demonic! Demonic!" The leader, his brow furrowed, wrote something down beside Qin Mu's name. A crane swooped down, carrying the name register away into the sky. Inside the hall, the murals on the pillars caught Qin Mu's attention. They were detailed diagrams of vital qi circulation, maps of ancient techniques. These incomplete diagrams sparked something in him, a realization that the Imperial College held much more than what was visible to the eye. As he pondered the meaning of the diagrams, his heart raced at the thought of discovering their origin, knowing that these diagrams could unlock secrets vital to his cultivation. Could the patriarch have discovered these techniques? Qin Mu thought, determined. He knew one thing for certain. He had to become an imperial scholar, to delve deeper into the knowledge hidden within these walls. Qin Mu, his mind steely and unwavering, studied the intricate diagram inscribed upon the pillar. The 6 Directions Realm's circulation chart of the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. With a sharp memory, he committed every line and curve to heart. He had once acquired the 5 Elements Realm's incomplete diagram in the Doom Suppression Palace. And now, with the 6 Directions Realm's addition, the puzzle pieces began to align, slowly piecing together the once missing sections. However, despite his best efforts, the entire diagram remained frustratingly incomplete. As the young patriarch had already glimpsed the circulation diagram of the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, Qin Mu reasoned that he might possess the incomplete 5 Elements diagram. Even if it, too, was flawed, perhaps it could complement his own, filling in the gaps. The matter weighed heavily on his heart, for it concerned the very essence of his cultivation. He could not afford to let it slip. In the midst of his thoughts, a monk emerged from the rear of the hall, his voice grave and commanding. "Where are the scholars from River Tomb? River Tomb's scholars, step forward. You need not partake in this test, but instead wait for the next stage." Wei Yong blinked in surprise, then rose with 2 fellow scholars. As they made their way toward the inner hall, he turned back, calling to Qin Mu. "Brother Qin!" "Silence!" The monk's voice cut through the air like a whip, bringing an immediate hush to the hall. "The scholars of River Tomb have suffered great losses. They need not undergo further trials. The rest, remain here and await your examination." Qin Mu was taken aback. In all his years, he had never encountered a monk in Imperial College. The sight of so many Taoists had led him to believe that this institution was rooted in Taoism, yet now, before his eyes, was a monk. The realization struck him like a thunderbolt. Buddhism and Taoism coexist within Imperial College? He mused silently. I wonder what Great Thunderclap Monastery would say about this? Before he could ponder further, another monk, robed in yellow, stepped forth from the back of the hall, his eyebrows stretched long and high, giving him an imposing presence. He carried a register and scanned the room with piercing eyes, his gaze like an iron trap. His voice, deep and resonant, rang out, commanding the attention of every scholar present. This test concerns your nature, he announced, his words thundering like the booming of a great bell. Every scholar in the hall felt the vibrations in their bones, their senses momentarily stunned by the sheer force of his voice. The monk seated himself cross-legged, his eyes half-lidded as his palms pressed together in solemn prayer. I will chant the incantations within this scripture, he said calmly. If you cannot withstand it, you may leave. Those who endure may proceed to the next test. He began to chant, the sound of his voice rolling like the toll of an ancient bell. Buddha said, Subhuti, all bodhisattvas and mahasattvas should subdue their minds as follows. All living beings born from eggs, wombs, humidity, or by transformation, with or without form, either thoughtful or thoughtless, and neither thoughtful nor thoughtless, are all led by me to the final nirvana for the extinction of reincarnation. Although immeasurable, uncountable and unlimited numbers of living beings are thus led to the extinction of reincarnation. It is true that not a living being is led there. Why so? His words surged forward, crashing into the minds of all present, like waves breaking upon the shore. The vibrations echoed through their bodies, shaking their vital chi, their spirit embryo divine treasure, their 5 elements divine treasure. The power of the great Rule Buddha seemed to manifest before their very eyes, shining with blinding brilliance. The pressure mounted as the vibrations intensified, shaking their bodies and minds to their very core. Their vital chi grew unstable, scattered by the force of the monk's voice, leaving them struggling to maintain their divine treasures. The chanting's assault on their thoughts was relentless. It was as if their very souls were laid bare before the monk, their most private thoughts exposed and vulnerable. Finally, one scholar could not withstand the pressure. He sprang to his feet and fled the hall, his face pale with fear. With a final desperate cry, more scholars fled. Some collapsed in pain, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Vomit and bile filled the air as they struggled to expel the pressure that had invaded their very being. Yet, the yellow-robed monk remained unperturbed, continuing his chanting as if nothing had changed. The room grew heavier with each passing moment, and more scholars stumbled out of the hall, unable to bear the weight of the monk's voice. Soon, only a scant few remained in their seats, trembling but resolute. Chin Mu sat at the center, the vibrations washing over him like an unstoppable tide. His body rocked slightly under the force, but his expression remained unmoved. Beneath his breath, he murmured the devil's tongue, countering the monk's sacred chant with his own inner defense. His heart surged with exhilaration, for this was a contest of will, a battle of spirit, and he was relishing every moment of it. The monk continued, but his incantations had little effect on Chin Mu. His defenses held strong, impervious to the onslaught. After some time, the monk's eyes flickered open, settling upon Chin Mu. He observed the youth, unmoved by the battle of wills unfolding around him, calmly contemplating the murals upon the pillar. The monk's brow furrowed in confusion. This is strange, he muttered. The evaluation clearly marked him as demonic, yet how can he endure this so long? If he were truly evil, how could he remain unaffected? The monk's chant faltered, and with a deep sigh, he rose from his seat. All of you have passed. Proceed to the next test. The scholars who remained stood, relief washing over them. They had been so overwhelmed that their clothes were soaked in sweat, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. Yet Chin Mu stood as calm as ever, untouched by the ordeal. The monk paused, looking once more at Chin Mu before marking something in his register. When he reached Chin Mu's name, he hesitated. Finally, he wrote, Heart of a newborn, unmoved by the outside world. The monk walked to the back of the hall, and with a flick of his wrist, he cast the register into the air. A crane swooped down from the heavens, catching the book in its beak before flying upward. The crane soared to a great hall atop a distant mountain, where a young boy received the book. He quickly passed it to a middle-aged Taoist within. Teacher Ling Yun, the register has arrived. Ling Yun, upon reading the evaluations, frowned slightly. The talents this year are weaker than in previous years, but still worthy of notice. Let's see. Ah? He read the evaluation for Qin Mu once more, his expression growing puzzled. What is this? It says he has demonic nature, yet claims he is unmoved by the world? This makes no sense. The boy stepped forward with more news. The River Tomb scholars have already been selected. The Imperial Preceptor's 3 places are secured. There are also requests from powerful families for their children to enter Imperial College. Ling Yun sighed. These families hold more power than I do. The River Tomb scholars are already given preference. But what of this Qin Mu? As the boy gave more details, Ling Yun's frown deepened. I'll have to make things difficult for him. He can't pass my test, then. Meanwhile, Qin Mu walked out, his gaze lifting to the mountain road ahead. The scholars climbed onward, and soon the road unfolded before them, revealing the breathtaking scenery, jade cliffs with waterfalls flowing like rivers of light, their radiant beauty drawing gasps of awe from the group. A quiet voice beside him caught his attention. Elder sister, is your surname also Si? Qin Mu asked curiously, noticing the young girl beside him. Her name, Si Yunxiang, matched that of someone he knew, and he couldn't help but take a second glance. She blushed slightly and lowered her head, walking ahead without responding. She knows how to be shy, Qin Mu thought with a smile. Definitely not Granny in disguise. The thought settled in his mind, and soon they reached the great hall, where a boy holding a name register looked at them all and spoke. Scholars, the examination ahead is perilous. Is there anyone who wishes to withdraw?